Hello, Mr. Gabaldon.
Good morning. Happy Tuesday.
How are you, buddy?
Doing fabulous, thank you.
Excellent. How was your weekend?
It was great, nice and relaxing. Just got back from sunny San Diego, at least as sunny those last couple days. First couple days a little rainy. We're out there for our company awards ceremony, so it was good times. I'm glad to be back to the ABQ.
Awards? How'd you do? I heard you did all right.
Yeah, I did pretty good. I won a President's Club award, so it was very nice. And
Congratulations, man. You earn it.
thank you, Alex.
All right, so let's get started. I think we'll start off just talking about interest rates a little bit, just compared to how we were last week. And then let's roll into this housing. I got my little air quotes here, the housing meltdown thing going on. And we'll spend the rest of the talk talking about that. Does that sound pretty good?
Sounds good to me.
All right, so how are rates, man? What's going on?
Rates are still steady, same as last week. Anywhere from mid fours to low fives, depending on credit. So almost exactly the same as last week. So which is nice. It's been probably the steadiest it's been in a while, as far as going 2 weeks in a row with the same type of interest and that lower and staying low. So yeah, rates are still very, very good.
Excellent. You seeing much like refi business right now, or is it mainly new?
Mainly new purchase. There's a little bit of refi business. There is a lot of people who are refinancing from real estate contracts to permanent financing. A few people who had adjustable rates going to fixed rates. Cash out refinances are still a little bit slow. Not too many cash out refinances. So I would say it's a pretty small percentage of business right now. I'd say mainly 90% new purchase.
Perfect. I think that whole cash out refi is a good segue to get into the housing meltdown. All right. So you were doing this back in what, 07 when
Yes.
the meltdown happened?
Yes. That was kind of the tip of the iceberg, if you'd say. It just barely melting then.
What happened, do you think, in your opinion?
I would say several factors. Top factors were just too loose of credit guidelines. They had a lot of just crazy programs where credit wasn't really. You could have any score. I mean, you could be a 495 credit score and take cash out of your home, and work history wasn't as relevant, or validating income wasn't as strict, and they had stated income programs. So it was, I think, that along with just the corporate greed, people making a lot of money on those mortgage-backed securities, just getting crazy, financing anything, and I think that's just, and home values were just growing at an exponential rate that couldn't sustain, and so I would say there were several factors, but I think a lot of it just had to do with such loose credit restrictions.
I remember on the consumer side then going in and, I was self-employed. I made this much money. Oh, sure, you can get whatever you want. I was like, really? No verification? I mean, I could have really screwed up because whatever I want. Oh, you want 125% of the value? Sure, we'll give it to you. From the consumer side at that point, I was like, all right, if they're giving you that much money, dude, this ain't good.
Yeah, and then another huge thing was the interest-only loans. A lot of people would buy a $750,000 $1 million home, $500,000 home on interest only, and payment was $700 a month, living the high life. And then in 5 years, the real payment comes due of $3,500, $4,000 a month. That with the perfect storm, if you will, a higher mortgage payment plus lower income, if any income, on a home that you owe $500 on and it's worth $250, and that's where the perfect storm came to fruition. So
interest only, so balling on a budget.
Yep, balling on a minimal budget. There you go.
All right, so we have things in place now to prevent that from happening again, right? So
correct.
It's harder to get a loan. Some people are saying it's starting to loosen up a little bit. What are your thoughts on that?
Minimally. I mean, compared to then, it's still night and day. Night and day. Credit restrictions are still, from government standards, are still very, very very conservative. I mean, basically, I think the default rate's very low because the credit guidelines are stricter, income's stricter. There's stronger requirements on assets to make sure people have a little bit of assets in the bank. Appraisals are a lot more heavily monitored. So back in 07 and prior, appraisers, were at the mercy of, the lenders saying we need to appraise for this. And sure enough, it came in. So everything just, the 250 became 300, or 300 became 350 just so quick. But now the appraisers are so heavily regulated and protected so that we're actually not even allowed to contact the appraisers. We're not allowed to have any contact with them. So I think anybody who's saying it's another housing bubble is, I would disagree, just because another big factor is, the East Coast, New York, California markets kind of big dictators of what's going on. And if you're out in California, they've had a minimal, kind of plateaued, but to say another housing bubble would be just a long stretch. I mean, and their prices have, basically plateaued, haven't came down a whole lot, but we kind of follow suit with them. And we're very well sheltered here in New Mexico, where we kind of plateau a little. We've never shot up like, skyrocketed super quick. So our plateau is a little more sustainable.
That's a good point on like the appraiser end, because I've noticed that just on the real estate side of it. Yeah, they're not. It's like either making appraisal or not at all kind of thing. It's not. Oh, yeah. They're not over appraising anything. They're very conservative on values, I would say.
Very, very conservative on values. It's either worth that, and they have no problem appraising it for what it's really worth. They're not going to get basically bullied into air quotes bullied into making what it's worth, because it's just it doesn't operate that way anymore. So which I
like air quotes, because you can just say anything then and put it in.
Yeah. So which is a great thing. I mean, so I know oftentimes people get upset, but I mean, if you put a house under contract for 220 and it's worth 200, I mean, you can gripe about it all you want, but sometimes it's worth what it's worth, right?
Oh, absolutely. So that was another factor that you touched on, is just the appreciation was so fast, right? So yeah, people could, pull out on future equity because it was, I think our peak appreciation we had was in 05, and it was over 12% appreciation for 1 year. Mm. Yeah, so they're banking on it going up. Mm-hmm. We haven't had that this last go around. This last go around, our highest appreciation since we've been recovering has only been 4.89%. So even our appreciation cycle has been a lot more. I mean, like you're saying, it's just steady. Mm-hmm. It's kind of a normal thing. We're not going to hit a bubble. We haven't created a bubble.
Yeah, so this is I think a bubble could be called a plateau. I mean, and that's normal for it to kind of level out. I think it's healthy. You don't want to continually. I mean, there is a point where if you plateau for a while and things stay steady, that's good, as long as you avoid the big dips. Even if you have a little bit, and as long as you can avoid the big dips, I think that's the safe part, and that's what we're trying to do as an industry, is avoid those big dips and just, even if you plateau for a while, that's okay. It doesn't always have to be double-digit growth, because we saw what happens when that occurs.
I agree. Slow and steady, man.
And steady wins the race.
So even people talking about, the big economic slowdown that's coming, it's got to happen. I mean, it'd be foolish to think that things are just going to keep going up all the time. Agreed? I mean, that's just the cycle of business.
Yes.
To just kind of put everything in perspective a little bit. So we finished up last year. Our average price was around $240,000 average price for Albuquerque. Mm-hmm. Do you know what the price was in the peak market?
In Albuquerque?
Yeah.
280?
243.
Really?
So are still not even recovered on the average price from 07.
Oh my goodness, I didn't know that.
So we are now in the growth phase of our economy, I think.
Yes.
So
from
now
those numbers you said, it's evident. Yeah,
it's awesome. And then even looking back, because this was interesting, so I pulled some numbers because I'm a numbers dork, right? That even when we started slowing down, there's only been, in like an 8-9 year cycle, there's only been one year where it actually was negative numbers, right? So aside from the big drop we had a negative 0.16 depreciation. I mean, that's nothing. Nothing. So even an economic slowdown, so maybe we go from 5% appreciation to 3% appreciation. That's not the end of the world.
Exactly.
It's like we said, slow and steady.
Slow and steady, and just gotta keep in mind. I watch the news minimally and just kind of take, you can't take it for scripture. It is, it's, a lot of people just take that as, just orthodox doctrine, and it's not. It's just, you got to take it for what it is, and I think as long as we're all aware, and that's all we can really do.
Absolutely. All right, so we've got regulations in place to prevent this from happening again. We're not loose with credit like we were before. We're not seeing the appreciation numbers that we had historically before, which would created that. The other thing we had before was a ton of cash out refi, people destroying their equity, right?
Mm-hmm. Exactly.
Are you guys seeing that in the lending industry for the last couple of years? Because we have had appreciation. Are you seeing a lot of people just decimating their equity?
Not really. I think people are valuing their equity a little more. I think typically, people have short-term memory, and it's like, 10 years ago, that's an eon ago. But I think a lot of the younger generation who saw their parents go through that have been a little bit more, cautious about, hey, you don't need to milk out every penny that your house is worth. And I think a lot of lenders, especially local lenders, are, giving people better advice as far as, hey, there's no reason to take your 3.5% that you got 5 years ago and take that to a 5% for 20 or 30 grand. Maybe, if you really need the money, utilize a home equity line of credit, or there's other ways to use the money. But I think people have gotten a little more cautious about going to their house right away just for money. I think
we have a lot
from
smarter
consumer to lender.
now.
Yeah.
Just with technology. People can research all this. We got a smarter consumer than we had 11, 12 years ago. Absolutely.
Exactly. Yeah.
Perfect. So we're not going to have a meltdown, right, John?
John's crystal ball says no.
We love your crystal ball there, John. It's less shiny today than last week.
Thanks, Alex.
All right, brother. Hey, thank you. Is there anything else you want to add on that?
No, have a great week, and just be kind to somebody.
And interest rates are still awesome. So let's buy
Interest
house.
rates are still awesome. Buy a house. It's time to
All
break
right. Thanks, John. Thank you guys on Facebook.
Bye-bye.
I'll see you guys later.
All right, bye-bye.
Bye.